Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL Draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the top prospects playing in various leagues across Europe. I'm your host, Logan Horn, and today I'm joined by my co-host and fellow prospect analyst Matthew Zator. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing good. As you can see, we're down a member of our team here, but we'll push on. I'm doing well, though. I mean, you got hockey well underway in all leagues. Now the AHL started up. We got NHL. We got all the other junior leagues have gone on for like a month or two, or maybe a month and a half already. Well, maybe not that long, but they've been on longer than the NHL. But lots of great prospect stuff in Canuck land here. I got most of the guys doing really well. Bristevich was leading the OHL in scoring. I believe he's not anymore, but he's like a point off now. But he was leading it at one point. That's insane for an 18-year-old defenseman, but I'm happy. So let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of fun prospects to watch, and hockey's in full swing. As you mentioned, one of our normal co-hosts who's always here with us talking about prospects, Peter Bayarkini, can't join us today, dealing with some technical difficulties, but he'll be back as soon as that's all solved. Should be next episode here. All right. I mentioned it last week. I'm going to bring it up again here before we get swinging on these prospects. The Hockey Writers, we've recently expanded our content to add a Substack newsletter dedicated to every NHL team, as well as one that combines the best articles across the site every day. Also, though, we have one about only prospects and NHL draft content, only those articles. So as fans of that kind of content, as fans of prospects, which I'm assuming you are if you're watching this, because I don't know what the heck you're doing here if you don't care about that. But if you don't want to miss any of the great content we produce on this site about the draft, about prospects, this makes that really easy. So just sign up to get all of our best articles delivered right to your inbox multiple times throughout the week. We even offer a premium subscription. It gives you access to some exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. That includes weekly mailbags, columns about prospects, exclusive profiles of some top prospects, and even interviews with prospects. And there's much more on the way as well. So join now to get a discount on an annual subscription. And you can find a sign-up link for that Substack in the description below. Check it out. All right, so this is the third and final episode of the series we've been doing recently, looking at the top drafted and undrafted talent in a variety of league systems. We started with Canada, then the USA, and now we're doing European leagues. So go back and check those episodes out if you'd like to see some of those best prospects and some people to keep an eye on. But we'll get started now with Europe, and we're going to start with some top talent for the 2024 draft, playing in a variety of leagues. But we're going to kick it off with Anton Silayev playing in the KHL. Matt, what are your thoughts on Silayev so far this year? And I don't know, how is he shaped up since a really hot start in the KHL?
Well, I mean, he's still doing pretty well. He's he's kind of fallen off. I said this. I mean, I believe I said, make sure, don't go crazy about this guy yet. He will fall off that pace, and he has. I mean, it was just inevitable. I mean, there's no way they're going to keep going on the pace he was at the beginning of the season. Now has 8 points in 21 games, which is still pretty good for a defenseman. But he has dropped off that. I can't remember what that pace was on. It was a pretty crazy one in this first bunch of games. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. 6 of his 8 points came in his first, if I do math here, 6 games. I mean, that was pretty crazy. And now since then, he's only had 2 points. So, I mean, it's like, you knew it was going to happen.
It evens out. Yeah.
It evens out. But he's still an amazing prospect for this upcoming draft. I mean, he's just his size alone, that 6'7", 207-pound frame. I mean, there are scouts that are drooling over that already at this point, because to have a guy like that can skate as well as he can at that size, you're going to look at him. And even if he's not producing what he is, I mean, he's still a really good prospect to watch for this upcoming draft. And the rankings haven't really been updated since, but all the main ones that have released rankings had him in the top 10. I would still put him in that top 10, even though he has dropped off his production a bit. But just because of the package he's got and the skill set he has, the biggest thing for me is that the way he can skate at that size, because sometimes, you're that size, sometimes you're lumbering around the ice, and he doesn't. So he looks pretty good for a 6'7" defenseman. But I'm still excited about him, even though he has doesn't have a lot of points in his last bunch of games here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of that. I think obviously we knew he wasn't going to score a point per game in the KHL for very long because he's 17.
Yeah,
he's still just 17, and he's 6'7", playing big minutes. But we still knew that's not realistic. He's not going to maintain that for an entire season yet. So it makes sense that it's kind of regressed a little bit, and it now looks like a little more, I wouldn't even say average. It looks like a little more realistic of production over a larger sample size. But he still looks great when he's playing. And I really see a lot of the same things I saw in Simon Edvinsson in his draft year, except he's taller and he is playing full time in a bigger role in a pro league, and he's scoring a ton. It's wild. It's like he's taller Simon Edvinsson, who's even further along at the same age.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a long ways out if he can keep this trajectory, but more so than with Edvinsson in my eyes. This Silayev looks like the guy that at his peak projection would legitimately be the next Victor Hedman. He's excellent defensively. He's not the most physical, but he's so big and strong that he gets lots of hits and he can separate people from pucks with his body. And then he's really good offensively. He skates so well.
Mm-hmm.
He'll charge down the wing off the rush, and he'll hold his stick with just one hand and use the other to brace against the defender. And he's got such a long reach. There's no chance they can take the puck from him. Just wild stuff. You don't see players that look like this very often. So definitely someone to watch. And if he played anywhere but Russia, I think he would be in the conversation for second or third overall by the end of the year, but who knows where he'll actually end up. You never know. But I guess we saw last year with the Coyotes taking all these Russians in the top 12. They can still go wherever teams value them. So if there's a team that's not too worried about it and is just very excited by Silayev's projection, which I assume there will be, then if he can keep this up even remotely, he's going to be a really, really early pick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to quickly talk about Leo Sahlin Wallenius, who is a prospect playing in Sweden in the J20 Nationell, the top junior league in Sweden. I don't have a ton to go off for him right now, but I've been watching him a little more recently. We talked a little bit about just at the end of the summer here about how this doesn't look like the strongest class for Swedish prospects. But some are starting to emerge, as we said they would, as we can only assume one of the greatest hockey nations in the world is going to have great players come out of there. And Sahlin Wallenius seems like one of them. He is really strong. He played really well at the Linka Gretzky for Sweden. Looked very strong. Skates really, really well. I don't know. I see first round potential for sure. He's going to need a little bit of work to get there. But you know what? At this time last year, Axel Sandin Pellikka was maybe a first rounder, and Tom Willander was a nobody in most people's eyes. So lots can change, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that, especially if he can get a little bit of time up a level in the pros playing against men, which I think his game will translate there pretty well as soon as this year. So Sahlin Wallenius is someone to keep an eye on early this year. Matt, I'll come back to you here with Aron Kiviharju, who is in a very strange spot because he was the most talked about for a long time before this year. And now he's going to be out for several months. I believe I keep mixing up the injuries between him and Ivan Demidov, but I think Kiviharju was injured in practice and is going to be out for reportedly 2 to 3 months, something like that, which is significant in your draft year. So what are your thoughts on Kiviharju and how his situation could affect his draft year?
Yeah, I mean, injuries always seem to derail sometimes. I mean, the thing is, though, I mean, he's still a talented enough prospect. I don't think he'll, scouts and teams will be like, oh crap, we're not gonna care about that guy. He's hurt. He's not gonna. But he's been so impressive when he has played. I mean, it was so good in the under 18s last season. Had 7 points in 5 games. I was also an alternate captain on that team as well. Had that leadership there, and you got to look at what he has done so far in his not in his draft year, because he's only played 7 games and it had 2 points in those 7 games. But you look back at their history, and this is I always look back at when the COVID year. You're looking, they didn't play this year. They still got drafted in, first, second rounds, even though they didn't play, because you look at their skill sets, you look at what they have done in the past, and you're still saying, okay, they're still going to be a good player. They may have not played so much in the last, his draft year, but you look at the whole package, what they bring, and Kiviharju still brings a lot to the table as a defenseman. And I believe he was one of my first guys you should watch early on. And he played I believe he played at the World. I don't know if he played the World Juniors. No, he didn't. It was the under 18s again. And he was so impressive in his first go around in the under 18s. And he was like really young, and he had 6 points in 6 games. So, I mean, it's he's done really well at the international level against his peers. And, he was going to play. He did also play last season in the Liiga, which is the top professional league in Finland too, and looked really good. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to change too much. It's hard because he won't be able to increase his stock, because 2 months is a long time, unless he gets, comes back and starts dominating. I believe it was Joakim Kamel that had an injury. I think it was in his draft year too. And we were talking about the same thing, what's going to happen when he comes back, and he still got drafted in the first round. So I'm not really worried that he's going to drop too much, because he's still an exceptional talent.
Yeah, he's going to be really interesting to watch. Like you said, like he's been on the radar a long time. He played in the Liiga last year when he was 16. He played in the top U20 league in Finland when he was 15 and was one of the best players, period, not just best defenseman. Like he's really, really talented, really smart player. I just have no idea what to do with him, because if he's missing time, that's going to hurt. But he's also like on the small side, which we know teams are nervous about. Even like Lane Hudson, we all knew he was going to be great. He's just so talented, just a remarkable talent. And because he was quite undersized by NHL standards, he fell quite a bit. And then he's just having to work to prove everyone in the NHL, at least everyone, wrong. I don't know if that'll happen with Kiviharju to a similar level, or maybe to a lesser extent. Missing time won't help. I have no idea. He could be the type like Kamel to be hurt for part of their draft year, still go top 16-ish. He could be Lane Hudson. He could drop to the second. Wherever, if he goes past, 20, it feels like that's going to be a really valuable pick. I don't know that that's much of a risk, really. I feel like that's a big swing. That's a good one. Anyway, he'll be someone to watch. Depends on how soon he comes back and how he looks when he's returning from injury. But I guess you can't watch him right now, but someone to watch when he comes back, I guess. All right, we're going to move on to the SHL here, to the top Swedish Pro League. Look at some of the top prospects playing here. And so from here on out, we're going to be talking about drafted prospects. And we'll start with someone we've talked about a bit lately. Matt, I'll get your thoughts here on Jonathan Lekkerimaki, Vancouver Canucks prospect. Up and down year and a half since being drafted, but he's definitely on the up right now. What are your thoughts on his SHL year so far?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it, because he's back to what he was touted to be in his draft year. A lethal shooter, one of the best one of the most accurate shots in that draft, I believe, in that time. And he's showing it this season so far. And he's got 7 goals in 12 games, 10 points in 12 games as well. I believe he's still tied for the goal scoring lead in the SHL now. And most of his shots that I've seen the last few have been just absolute snipes. One just barely. I mean, he had so little room, and he just put it past the goaltender. I mean, it looked like he had no room, and it went in. This last goal is also a nice one where he kind of circled around the net, came out, and right into the slot, and again picked the corner. I mean, he's going to be a lethal goal scorer in the NHL, and I'm more convinced of that now after this stretch he's had. That, I mean, maybe it's too early to say he's going to be like a 40 goal guy in the NHL, but with that wrist shot, I mean, I really see it as like a Marcus Naslund type wrist shot where he can score from anywhere in that offensive zone because of how accurate it is. And like I said, I'm super excited. I think I'm really close to saying he's now the top prospect of the Canucks. Now, when I said Verlander was, I think they're like really close. But Lekkerimaki is starting to pull ahead again, which is great for Canucks fans because, Pettersson is here and he's great, but they're going to need more of those types of goal scorers in the future. And Lekkerimaki looks like he's going to be there and hopefully be that sniper beside Pettersson on that top line, which would be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely the dream when they drafted him, was like, in a few years' time, we can line him up, hopefully with Pettersson, and he can add 25, 30, 35 goals in best case scenario, maybe. And that looked pretty unlikely last year. But to be fair, he dealt with so many injuries and illnesses. It was like a joke. It was insane. Got healthy, great end of the year. Moved from the Allsvenskan to the SHL. I was like, oh boy, how is he going to translate? It's a harder league. And he's been incredible. Leading all, tied for the lead in goals, leading all U20 players in goals. So he's the best goal scorer. He's most points by all junior players in the SHL right now as well. Just a phenomenal start. If he can keep this up to some extent, wonder if he spends any more time in Sweden or if he joins like the Abbey Canucks next year. I know he's technically loaned right now in Sweden because he was signed by the Canucks. So there's always a chance they bring him across the pond for next year. And that the chances are looking pretty good. Just a remarkable goal scorer. It's really, really cool to see him having a great year so far. So next up, I'm going to chat about David Edstrom, who went, actually, I believe he was the last pick in the first round this last year, Vegas taking him. He really grew on me throughout the year. Just a really dependable two-way center. He's very big already. I think he's 6'3". The only problem most people had with him was they didn't necessarily see the offensive potential, which I understand. Although, when you're that size, you don't always need it. But if you want to be more than a good bottom 6 center and you want to be something more than that, you need to have offense. And I think he's showing that pretty well to start the year. He's one of the top U20 scorers in the SHL this year with Lekkerimaki, with Axel, Sandin Pellikka, who we've talked about lots on this show this year, or I guess I've talked about lots on this show. But Edstrom's been really great. He has 7 points in 13 games so far, which is a ton. This is the SHL. This isn't junior hockey. You don't expect people to come out of the draft and then the next year score much at all in any big role. It's not a super common thing. So for someone with not a lot of offensive potential to score even at like a half point per game rate right out of the draft is really solid. I don't think he's going to be an impact NHLer really soon, but the two-way game is solid. Defensive play is really great. He's got the size and the skating that Vegas seems to just love because their team that won the cup last year was massive. So I feel like he could be a legitimate piece for them, more than just like a depth player. That is if they don't trade him first, but we'll move on from that. I love Edstrom. I think he's looked really great. I mentioned it before. We'll quickly talk about him because I don't shut up about him, so I'll make it quick. But Matt, what are your thoughts on Axel Sandin Pellikka to start the year? Just tearing up the SHL so far. Like Edstrom just drafted, so it's been a crazy start for him. But what are your thoughts there?
Oh, well, everyone knows I also love Axel Sandin Pellikka. He's was one of my favorite defensemen in that draft, and he's showing why he was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
He's still one of my favorites. Yeah, 6 points in 12 games. 5 of those are goals in the SHL so far. And as a defenseman, scoring 5 goals is pretty good.
Not bad.
Especially in a league like that where he's in his draft plus 1 year and had only 2 goals last season in the SHL and already has 5. And doesn't look like he's slowing down either. I mean, like you said, you've talked about many times of how good he looks. And he's playing a lot too. I mean, he's averaging over around 20 minutes a night. And for a defenseman that young on a team in the SHL, that's pretty good to be relied upon to be a top defender. And, the amount of goals he's scored throughout, I mean, not just he scored them all in this last month. I mean, it's not like he's gone a bunch of games where he hasn't scored. I continue to be impressed by him, and I'm really excited to see him in the NHL on the Detroit Red Wings blue line because it could be a Axel Sandin Pellikka, Simon Edvinsson pairing. We've said that's going to be an exciting one to see because
Totally.
really, really good. One really big defenseman and then a smaller guy, but
yeah, you can balance it out a little bit, Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great year for him so far. A writer, podcaster, personality for the Red Wings on the internet, Prashant Iyer. Lots of great graphs and hot takes and stuff from him, predictions, whatever, all through the year. Check him out. But he shared this graph recently that the x-axis was points per game in the SHL, and the y-axis was what was it? Oh, it was Corsi for percentage, which is attempted shots for while you're on the ice for your team. Just generally kind of describes how well you are at possessing the puck and moving it in the right direction while you're on the ice. And it's a graph. All the points plotted were just Red Wings prospects who've played in the SHL. And one of the incredible outliers way off is Moritz Seider in his draft plus 2 year that he spent in the SHL. And then right next to him is Axel Sandin Pellikka. Obviously, it's very early this year. But for him to be even he's not just in the same group as Seider. His numbers so far are better than Seider's were a year later in his development, which would be an incredible development for the Red Wings. Not saying he's going to be better than Moritz Seider, but if he can be close to as good, that would be massive. So he's no slouch defensively. He pushes the puck in the right direction, like we've talked about. He's a Quinn Hughes defenseman, which means he doesn't have to defend because he has the puck.
Yeah,
you don't have to defend if you always have the puck on your stick, and you just have to be smart about getting it and keeping it, and that's basically the same as defending. Anyway, we'll take a quick break here. And I'll mention again our new Substacks devoted to each team, but also we have one for prospects and draft content. Couple times a week, if you sign up for this, you'll get right to your inbox sent a newsletter of all of our best prospect and draft content. And there's also a premium subscription that gives you access to exclusive content you won't find anywhere else on our site or otherwise, including weekly mailbags, exclusive profiles of top prospects, prospect interviews, and much more. So join now to get that discount on an annual subscription. You can find a sign-up link for that in the description below. All right, now we're going to jump back in with some of the top prospects playing in the KHL out in Russia. I'll start it off with Alexander Nikishin, who's a Carolina Hurricanes prospect who has just gone on a meteoric rise the last 2 years. Last year, I believe he led all defensemen in the KHL in points. He's a big defenseman, great defensive play. When he was drafted, no one expected much from him offensively. And then he just exploded as just this dominant two-way force for SKA St. Petersburg. everyone was kind of curious, will he be able to do it again? Will he be able to keep it up? Is he a superstar, or is he just someone who can, pop off once in a while? He's not scoring quite at that rate, but he's scoring a ton already this year in the KHL once again. Looks like he's going to be just a great player. He's already a star in Russia. He's got a contract that keeps him there for a little bit longer. I don't remember the exact year. It's at least one more full season after this. But given that the Hurricanes are really, they seem to be fine with just letting people walk to free agency, and they have some really important free agents on the blue line coming up. Wouldn't be shocked for them to let some of their great players go because they know they have Nikishin coming soon. Granted, they have to know that they have Nikishin coming soon and be confident that he's going to actually sign with them. I expect he will. Most great players want to play in the NHL. But he looks like a true star. Like, this is almost like Kirill Kaprizov level of like plug and play, like drop him in your top pairing possibly. Definitely looks like he's going to be a top 4 defender immediately. Might be a bit of an adjustment, but probably not too much. He looks excellent. So keep an eye out for him. It's going to be a while before he's in the NHL, but I think he's going to be a star pretty quickly after he finally makes it. Matt, next is Matvei Michkov playing for HK Sochi. What are your thoughts on Michkov's year so far? I know he didn't get any ice time with St. Petersburg, but as soon as they loaned him to Sochi, he's doing his own thing again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think everyone can stop worrying about him. He's got 14 points, 14 games, point per game. He's doing his thing. I mean, we knew Michkov was going to be good. It was unfortunate that he had to start off the season with a team that didn't give him any ice time, but I only played one game. Yeah. But best thing that could happen for him was to get loaned back to HK Sochi, who he played for in his draft year as well, and had 20 points in 27 games. So, I mean, that was pretty good at that point. It's just really good for his development, and for Flyers fans that I'm sure were worried about what was happening over there. And but I'd say don't be worried anymore. I think he's fine. But his team's on a bit of a bad losing streak right now and has been destroyed once, 10-1, which is, I mean, he had an assist in that game though.
That's tough. Hey.
And he's still on he's not on his point streak anymore, but he's got quite a few points in his last 10 or so games. His last game on Friday had a goal, 5 shots, and is playing a decent amount, around 18 minutes a game. Which is a lot more than he got in his one game. I think the one game he played too, he got like nothing for ice time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's great that he's at I got it right here, 6 minutes. He only played 6 minutes in that game. So, and he's at least playing. I'm saying what his lowest ice time is like 14 minutes. In his last bunch of games. Well, 13:55 was his lowest. So I mean, he's still scoring at a pretty good rate, on pace for 29 goals in 62. And would that be pretty good to start a season? Yeah, I'd say Michkov is still on pace to be a really good guy in the NHL at some point. Again, we have to wait because he's under contract for quite a bit still, unless they can find a way out of it. But he'll be in the NHL and be ripping it up in no time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a Canucks fan yourself, I know that you've experienced this with Vasily Podkolzin, but SKA St. Petersburg is very stingy with ice time for young players, even ones that look like true stars in the top 6 in a different team like Michkov. They do have a ton of talent, but it's just wild that they saw Matvei Michkov and they're like, 6 minutes a game. No, actually, you're not going to play anymore for us. Go to this random team where you can tear it up and beat us at home. Like that was really fun. But whether it happens towards the end of this year, if they recall him from Sochi, or if it takes another year, he's going to be a star for St. Petersburg in the KHL. After this season, he has 2 full seasons in the KHL. So there's some time for him to get there, but the moment they actually give him a top 6 role is the moment he's going to be a star for them, which it just makes no sense that they haven't given him a chance. But I'm happy he's getting it somewhere. Yeah, he looks excellent. He's doing what we expected of him. He's not playing defense because his team is so bad that they don't want him to play defense. They're like, the only way we can win is if you only play offense. And so he does. Yeah. I think he could do more defensively if his team needed that from him. And he's not the perfect player, so they're just like, focus on what you are incredible at. And he's been doing pretty well. So great start for him, point per game, at least on his new team, which is just amazing for a draft +1 player. Last player in the KHL I'll mention quickly is Danila Yurov, Minnesota Wild prospect. Had a rough year last year in the KHL. What did he have? Yeah, he had 12 points in 59 games, which is okay. It's not horrible for a draft +1 year in the KHL. It's a really tough league. If you're not getting big minutes, you can't expect too much more than that. But so far this year, he already has beaten his point total from last year. He has 13, and he's only played 20 games. He works super hard, skates really well. For him to take that big of a step offensively is really exciting. It's got to be really exciting for Wild fans. I know they have a lot of great winger prospects and players, so they'd love a center, but you'll take it if there's another great prospect. He's still a ways from the NHL, both play-wise and contract-wise.
Yeah.
But really impressive rise from last season to this season. So someone to keep watch of, especially if you're a Wild fan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we'll move to Finland and the Liiga, which is the top pro league there. A couple prospects here we want to mention. Matt, I'll come to you for Lenni Hameenaho, who was drafted by the New Jersey Devils. What are your thoughts on him this season? He's one of the hottest goal scorers in the whole league to start, so there's something there.
Definitely something there. Again, playing in the top league in Finland with a SOT, and he's 8 goals, 14 games so far this season. And, again, these guys that are this young doing it in a league that has a lot of players that are over 20 and sometimes even older. You got some veteran guys that are in their 30s playing there. And yes, it's not the NHL, but these leagues, if you look back historically, if a young player does well in these leagues, they usually can translate it to the NHL or at least to a higher league like the AHL or whatever. These guys can do pretty well because they're playing against men and playing against men for, a number of seasons already. He's already also played in his draft year there. It was pretty good, 21 points in 51 games with that same team. And he was pretty impressive at the World Juniors as well for Finland. And that's pretty good for a guy that's this young to be that dominant in a league like the Liiga, who have produced quite a few really good NHLers over the years. And usually these guys do well in that league. So I'm excited to see what he can do in the future because, yes, there's always a difference moving from the big ice to the smaller ice and see how they can adjust. But usually Finnish players can do it because the way that their style of play is that type of North American, good forechecking, hard work ethic, is usually what can translate to the NHL ice. And we'll see how Hameenaho can do it when he does come over to North America. But New Jersey's got a good one in him because, again, very smart player, both offensively and defensively. So I'm excited because, like you say, that type of goal scoring in a league like this usually can translate, maybe not crazy like that, but can usually do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you just looked at statistics, he had the type of year last year where you might think he was, fighting to be a first rounder. The thing was, he was just kind of scoring around the net, which is good and that's helpful. And he wins board battles, wins battles for the puck in front of the net and scored on a lot of rebounds. That's great. But he didn't create much offensively for himself. He didn't seem like the kind of guy that could run an offense at all, really. And so, he slipped a bit. But so far this year, he's shown a lot of growth there, a lot more dangerous off the rush. The shot is getting better and better from further out, which helps a lot. He doesn't just put all his goals in from right around the net, although he's still great there. But if he can keep that growth, then yeah, he seems like he could be the real deal. Fun player to watch. Another Finnish player who I'll bring up here, both of these guys you really need to keep an eye on, probably because they'll play for Finland at the upcoming World Juniors, and that's Jani Nyman, who is a prospect for the Kraken, Seattle Kraken. He's a 6'4" winger. He's massive. He's got a huge shot. He's really worked on his playmaking recently as well. So he's a little bit more of a dual threat offensive type. Used to be shot. So all the defenders could just lean shot, and either his pass would miss or his shot would just go right into their shin pads. But he's really worked on that playmaking, and he's a lot tougher to nail down now. It's a lot tougher to know what he's going to do, because he's a credible threat all over the offensive zone, basically. I like him a lot. A bit of a steal for the Kraken. They're trying to build this prospect pool from the ground up still, and he's a real good get. Like, getting talent like this outside of the first round is huge, especially for an expansion team. And he looks like he could be a legit player. So at the World Juniors, he's going to be one of the bigger guys on the ice, probably. So he won't be too hard to miss. He's probably going to score some goals, but watch him before then too, because he's going to be a ton of fun. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the NL, which is the top Swiss league. There's the National League, and then there's the Swiss League, which is just below it, two-tiered, like a lot of European pros. And David Reinbacher is back there now. I believe at the time of recording, he's only played one game there, or no, 3 games there, something like that. Like, very few games since returning from training camp and his time with the Canadiens. So there's not much to go on off of his play so far this year. But Matt, what are your thoughts on Reinbacher? Maybe like goals for this year, and where you think he could end up next year, something like that.
Yeah, well, he already has a goal. He scored in his first game back there. And played, so not bad. 17 minutes he played in that game, and then his next game was up to 21. Fortunately, he got hurt in his last game, which was on Friday, and last Friday. Went awkwardly into the boards, only played 2 minutes in that game. So hopefully he's okay. That's something that I know Habs fans are probably like, oh no, we don't want him hurt. But there hasn't been any updates since then. So hoping that that's not something that's, usually when you don't get updates right away, it's like, it's going to be a bad injury. They're not sure about it, but hopefully he's fine. But yeah, I think, comes back, and hopefully it's not a bad injury. That I think he'll just continue to what he can do. I mean, he'll play top minutes in this league. Looks like he's going to be able to produce the same type of points that he did in his last season there, which is 22 points in 46 games. And goals for the future, I think he stays there. I don't know. I mean, the thing is about, we've said this before, but the Canadiens blue line, it's very young. And until they think he's ready for the NHL, I don't think he plays there. He played pretty well in the preseason, so I think he's close. And I think next season, if they think he could be an AHL guy, I believe he'd be eligible. No, he wouldn't be eligible yet. Well, actually, he could, because he's European, so I think he would be, different. So he would be able to play in the AHL next season. So he may play there if they don't feel like he's ready for the NHL ice full time. But you know what? I think he'll be able to come over from Europe and be there, North American play next season. And hopefully this injury is not one that keeps him out too long.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like their choice to send him back to Switzerland makes a lot of sense. They knew that he'd get probably top 4 minutes again, like he did in his draft year, instead of keeping him in the AHL, where they couldn't guarantee where he'd even sit in that lineup. Because like you said, they're pretty young in the NHL. They're D-Corps, but that goes for the Laval Rocket as well, because they've got a ton of talent there and more on the way. So that was the only place they were probably confident he'd get big minutes. Next year, there's definitely a chance that he makes it hard for them to not makes it hard to keep him off the NHL roster. But even if he doesn't make the Canadiens next season, it feels like the AHL will probably be a good level of competition for him. Really great defender already. Really, really smart at defending the rush, defending in zone, anything like that. A little more offensive touch than people give him credit for, in my eyes, at least. I think he'll be really great, and I don't think he's too far off. Could be another year, could be 2 years, but he'll be important for them soon. Yeah,
1 to 3 weeks.
1 to 3 weeks.
Reportedly going to be out due to a knee injury. So, I hate knee injuries. Hopefully, like, at least it's not. It doesn't seem to be too bad, because 1 to 3 weeks is better than a month.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So max 3 weeks he'll be out of the lineup. So which is maybe it's good news that it wasn't worse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not too bad. Hopefully he comes back soon and he's healthy for the rest of the year here. But I'm expecting big things from Reinbacher in the next year or two, even if he's not in the NHL yet. I think he'll be a valuable pick at 5th overall for the Canadiens. I know a lot of fans weren't too happy with that, but I think it'll be a good call long term. A good pick. Maybe not the best. Michkov was still on the board, but I think it'll be a good one. It's a really in-demand position, right, D, especially someone that big that moves that well. So, can't hate it too much. All right, we're going to wrap up our show, as we love to do each week, with our prospects of the week. My prospect of the week this week is Tanner Howe. We talked about him a fair bit last year because his numbers were great, but he was playing on the Regina Pats with Connor Bedard. Who knows how good players are when they play with Connor Bedard? It's like, are you really good? And that's why you look really good with Connor Bedard? Are you just okay? And he's so good that he makes you look really good.
Yeah.
So we had no idea what to do with him coming into this year, his draft year. Bedard has moved on to the NHL. What is Tanner Howe going to look like? Turns out he's really good. It's relatively small sample size at this point, but he has 19 points in 12 WHL games so far. That Pats team is still not good. Like, they're definitely worse than last year. They don't have the best player in the WHL anymore. But Howe has been phenomenal. I know he spent lots of last season centering his own line. Like, at even strength, he didn't spend that much time with Bedard. So that was a reason for hope that he could do something like this. But really positive to see him establishing himself as a good prospect of his own. He works really hard, great shot. If he keeps this up, then he's likely a first rounder. Well, almost definitely a first rounder. Most guys that score at that level are, unless your name is Riley Height or Andrew Crystal. But Howe is taller than both of them, so he will probably be a first rounder because that's what it takes at this point. But yeah, he's just been a pleasant surprise so far. So I want to highlight Tanner Howe. Matt, who's your prospect of the week this week?
Well, I mentioned him at the beginning, and he bears mentioning again. Hunter Brzustewicz. I'm super, like I said about Lekkerimaki, I'm really excited about this guy. He's, the OHL, he's not, I don't think he's leading I'm just going to double check. I don't think he's leading anymore because there was one point he was, but then I don't think he is anymore. Just let me check here. No, he is.
Changed.
He is still
at the top.
He is still leading. It's also tied for second in the entire CHL in points as well. Because Zach Funk of the Prince George Cougars leads with 21 points, and they got Crystal and Betcher. I also tied with 20 points, but Brzustewicz is 20 points tied for second in the entire CHL, not just the OHL, but yeah, he leads the OHL in points. He had his 4-game 3-point streak broken at his best.
Oh no.
He had an assist, so he still kept his 9-game point streak going. He hasn't had, his only game where he didn't get a point was his first game of the season. The Saginaw Spirit is the only team that's been able to keep him off the board. And I think he was only less than a minute away from not getting a point in that game because a secondary assist on one. So it's like, he's just been phenomenal this season to start. And this is not a forward. This is a defenseman. And he looks like his transition game is so impressive. I mean, he can skate the puck. He's great. He's one of the better passers as well. And with the Canucks team that has Quinn Hughes is the only real defenseman that can control the game offensively that he can. I'm not saying Brustevich is going to be Quinn Hughes, but he has a similar type of thing, and he's bigger. He's a bigger defenseman too. But, you know, to be a third round pick and to be doing this, he should have been drafted at least in the second round, what he's been doing. But they sure got a good one. He's a right-hand shot as well. That's a noteworthy attribute of his. So, yeah, I'm much more you could say about him. I don't think he's continuing this pace all season, because that's over 100 points in the season. 136 points is on pace for, but
never know.
Definitely on pace to shatter that amount of points he had last season, which I think was just a little over 50. Yeah. Prospect
we'll do that in November at this pace. Yeah, he's had a great start. I mean, I think he'll have some work defensively to do before he's like playing this well in the NHL. But you don't really expect that from an 18-year-old anyway. You know, there's going to be room for growth. And the same was said. I agree with you. Stylistically, there's some similarities with Hughes. Obviously, the ceiling isn't as high. The skill isn't quite as high. But like, there were similar questions about Hughes, his draft plus 1 year, even his first year or two in the NHL. Some people still think he's horrible at defending right now. Those people haven't watched him play in 3 or 4 years, probably. But Brustevich has just been super hot. Really, really great pickup in the third round, it looks like already. We knew this was a good draft class, but seeing some guys fall out of some of the top consensus names into middle of the draft range just shows that those guys are going to look probably like steals in the future. Could be a really strong and really deep draft class when we look back on it in a decade or two.
Yeah. Overall, the Canucks draft class is actually doing really well this season. Most of my prospect report was all 2023 draftees, which I was like, okay, there's another one, and there's another one. I'm not saying like these guys will do well in junior. I don't know how well they do in the NHL, but I'm super impressed with the draft class that the Canucks have this, you know, especially with how they're doing this season for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Willander and Aiden Celebrini. Yeah, they're teammates out in Boston University, and they've actually spent a couple games on a pairing together, which is just kind of fun to watch for Canucks fans, I'm sure.
And they both have their first goals already.
There. Yeah, which is pretty solid. I mean, they've got Max Celebrini as well, Lane Hudson. Like, they've got a ton of talent on that whole team, and they're just going to keep getting better. But that'll do it for us this week, actually. So thank you all for tuning into another episode of Prospect Corner. Make sure you subscribe to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel to make sure you catch all our new episodes. And also make sure you check out our NHL Draft and Prospects Substack to stay caught up on all of our new prospect content. There's a link in the description below. Thank you, Matt. We miss you, Peter, I guess. And thank you all for joining us this week on another episode of Prospect Corner. We'll see you next time.